Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Southern Planning Committee. We are not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of the alarm sounding, please leave the room and gather at the front of the building. I am obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Whilst we do our best to live stream meetings, there may be occasions when there are technical problems. If the live stream is halted for a technical reason, the meeting will be paused briefly to address the issue. If the issue persists and the live stream cannot be resumed, the meeting will continue even if it is no longer being transmitted live, and a backup recording will be published after the meeting. But I also please ask you all to ensure that mobile phones are switched off. In order that those watching the live stream know who is speaking, could members and officers introduce themselves prior to speaking? In order that all proceedings can be heard by those watching the live stream, could I remind members and officers to use their microphones at all times when speaking, including when taking a vote? To ensure the members of this committee and all points raised by the public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you that I will not tolerate any disruptive behaviour. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting, and if such behaviour takes place and persists, I will adjourn the meeting. I shall now ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves.
Joanne Thomas, solicitor.
Tim Ward, committee officer.
Sam Worms.
Rachel Connolly, councillor for Bridge North West and Tasley.
Councillor Ben Jeffcoat Bagley.
Dunya Furry, planning officer.
Gemma Lawley, senior developing highways manager.
Ollie Thomas, principal planning officer.
Louise Evans, principal planning officer.
Emma Green, area planning manager.
Nick Hignett, councillor for Lay Valley and chair of this committee today. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. That's been addressed, hasn't it?
We've had apologies from Councillor Chris Naylor, and as been said, Councillor Marco is substituting for Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Item 2, minutes. To confirm the minutes from the meetings held on 24th of February and 14th of May. Is it okay to take these two together, or do you want them separately? Yeah, so could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Proposed. Seconded there. Okay, that's fine. And all those in favour? Thank you. Item 3, public questions.
No public questions received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 4, disclosable pecuniary interests. Members are reminded they must declare disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable or non-registrable interests in any matter being considered at the meeting as set out in Appendix B of the Members' Code of Conduct, and consider if they should leave the room prior to the item being considered. Any disclosable interests, please. Thank you. Councillor Lumby.
I'm the ward councillor for item 8, so I'll say my piece and then sit at the back.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Item 5 on the agenda. Proposed residential development land east of Ford, Shrewsbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Ollie Thomas. So this is a full application for the erection of 90 dwellings and associated infrastructure and landscaping. Members did a site visit this morning, so the presentation is just a cycle through some of the slide plans and drawings that have been submitted. There is a further update that was received over the weekend from another member of the public, a further objection citing issues with the ecology and biodiversity and concluding with previous representations made by other members of the public in that regard. Plan on screen is a red line boundary. So the application site is just north of the A458 on the southern end of Ford. As you'll see in the report, it is a countryside site in terms of it has no policy support for development under our current local plan. However, it is a 100% affordable rural exception scheme, and that is an explicit exception to policy under CS5. within the former draft plan, which has since been withdrawn, it was a allocation for residential development. Whilst we're not attaching weight to the policies within the draft allocation, we are attaching weight to the evidence base that sits behind it in terms of site assessments. See the arrangement of the 93 dwellings. Accesses from the west off Butt Lane, leading off the access, the internal estate road is a parking area for 20 spaces, specifically for the primary school drop-off and pick-up points. I think it is obvious that at the pick-up and drop-off times there is parking and highway issues in terms of cars struggling to get through, pedestrians exiting cars in perhaps not the safest of manners. There's a further plan in the presentation which shows the on-site highways work, so I'll discuss more then. The red line dissecting the site from north to south, that is the existing rights of way that we walked today, whereas the diverted rights of way will hug the eastern field boundary, loop around the north, and then exit in the exact same position. This semicircle, I'm not sure if it's hugely obvious on here, but there's a local area for play in this semicircular area of open space on site. Again, we walked through the existing Quail Ridge and we could see the equipped area of play. So in terms of play provision for future residents, the site is able to deliver on site and have good access to off site. Here's a typical street scene of various sections through the site. So with it being 100% affordable housing, the house type and mix is relatively as you'd expect in that regard, as a semi-detached terrace properties make up the 2 stories and then a series of detached bungalows. You can't quite make out just because of the scaling issue on here, but there are some feature plots scattered across the site, and those are to kind of provide some visual interest at the corners. So there's a mix of materials. There's the inclusion of chimney breasts, chimney stacks on the roofs, just something to slightly articulate the street scene, so it's not just a single material palette across the site. The occupancy plan, so we can see here that the site's delivering a range of 1-bed to 4-bedroom dwellings. The 1-beds are all of the bungalows. There's only a small proportion of 4 beds, and then the majority are made up of the 2 and 3 beds. Can members see the key, or do you want me to explain the colours? Explain the colours, sure. So green is 1-bedroom. You can see those on the eastern boundary. They're the bungalows. Pink, peachy orange is 2-bedroom. Blue is 3-bedroom, and red is 4-bedroom. Massing plan, so predominantly 2-storey, and then obviously the bungalows are the single story, so blue is 2-storey and orange is 1-storey. With it being a full application, we've obviously got a full set of plans and drawings sufficient to determine the design and the appearance of the site. So this is the enclosures plan, which just looks at how all of the boundaries to the plots will be enclosed on site. There's a mix of brick walling in those key visual areas, so along the main estate roads and at key corners that serve public open space areas. Then there's your standard timber boarded fence panels in between each plot. Then there's some post and rail, and then along the southern edge, some of those plots, because of the proximity of the A458 and noise, they're needing slightly different enclosures through acoustic screening at 2.5 metre high. So here is a more zoomed in plan to show the on-site highways arrangements along Butt Lane. Members will remember from the site visit today, as you turn into Butt Lane, you met with a chicane build out on the left-hand side. So that restricts car flow through to a single lane at the top end of Butt Lane. Then as you're passing past the school, there is a bus drop-off, which is separated with a bit of an island. And then beyond the school, there's a further chicane on the opposite side of the highway. So it kind of makes car users slow down and it restricts single flow of traffic. The applicant here is proposing to do some pretty significant changes to the on-site arrangement with the intention of easing traffic flow and creating a better arrangement for the users of Butt Lane. The chicane build-outs are completely removed. Some double yellow lines will be painted along both sides of the carriageway, so preventing cars from stopping in those locations. The bus stop is then not separated with an island. It is just a hatched area within the highway. And then there's a pedestrian zebra crossing leading from the school over the road and then providing access through to the on-site school drop-off area. This plan is the SUDS management. It just shows you that SUDS features are being used where possible, and then connections into the existing sewerage network. So all of the green hatched areas are permeable surfacing. The blue rectangular area in the centre of the site is the attenuation, and then there's a long strip along the northern boundary, and that is a SUDS basin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So anybody got any questions for the planning officer, please? Yes, Councillor Waite.
This morning when we were looking at the bus stop, I got the impression that the island was going to continue to be there, but you've just said it's going to be removed. Is the island being removed and the bus will just pull in, or will the island continue to be there?
So on this, we can just see the yellow. If I can zoom in. So can you see on there that's where, so the bus stop is staying in its location, and then there'll just be yellow lining to delineate where the bus stop is. See the hatched yellow, where the cursor is now.
Okay. You understand that? That's okay. Anybody else? Question for the planning officer? Councillor Lumby.
Are any of the access roads to the houses private access tarmac, or is it all via public road?
On site, sorry. There will be a few private drives on there, yes, and then I think the rest will go for adoption, I would assume.
Don't we try and avoid drives for accessible housing?
There is a general presumption that registered providers don't like private drives for maintenance issues, but with this being 100% affordable, I think it's fair to make the assumption that the registered provider who will ultimately manage this site is aware of the site layout and the inclusion of private drives serving a handful of properties.
So secondly, the chicanes that have been removed, some of the objection comments relate to speed issues that won't be mitigated by the fact you've taken that out. You've not mentioned that the zebra crossing could have had a raised table, which would have then mitigated the speed back down. Can I confirm that you're not intending that to be a raised table zebra? And if not, why not?
Are you okay to just pass over to the highways officer?
So, excuse me, in terms of the zebra crossing, then at the moment it's shown as being flush, but it would be subject to detailed design and further assessment. So the stage 1 safety audit has identified that the designer needs to implement sort of further traffic calming measures. So it's a possibility that that could be a kind of a raised zebra, depending on the outcome of the design. But at the moment, the proposal only shows it to be flush. There is a requirement in terms of the vehicle approach speeds for a zebra crossing, and the automatic traffic count data indicates that the 85th percentile doesn't exceed that requirement. So you basically can't introduce a zebra crossing where the average speed is above 35, so that's not breached. So whilst there is traffic calming at the moment, which kind of influences the vehicle speeds, so that would be part of the consideration at the detailed design stage.
Thank you, Councillor Walmsley, and then we move on to speakers.
Thank you, Chair. There's a question about the parking that's provided to ease congestion at school pick-up and drop-off. It's quite common for those kind of parking areas on estates to end up full of residents' cars. Is there any plan to ensure that it remains available for parents using the school?
Yes. So whilst we don't have that information right now, because we don't think it's necessarily essential to determine in the application, condition 16 does specifically require a parking management strategy for the operation and enforcement of parking. Within that visitor drop-off area.
Okay, thank you. So we move on to speakers, please. We have 4 for this application. And first is Adam Chantry. Who'd like to go to the microphone there, please. Press the right-hand button to speak. And you have 3 minutes. Okay.
The traffic and associated safety impacts of this development have demonstrably not been based upon any realistic or accurate assessment of the real-world existing situation. Therefore, to approve development when clear evidence proves the information is wrong and contrary to national policy in paragraph 116 of the framework would be considered negligent by any reasonable person. Many of my photographs show extensive queues of traffic leaving Butt Lane stretching for over 150 metres at times. Ollie Thomas has seen queues exceeding that length firsthand. The applicant's transport assessment states that existing queues are less than a single car on any approach to the junction, and post-development would still be less than 1 car in 2035. The assessment is therefore demonstrably wrong, as is any reliance placed upon it. Extensive photographic evidence of congestion causing risk to life in Ford has been submitted. This includes lorries swerving to avoid minibuses full of children stuck on the A458 and large vehicles mounting pavements just metres from pupils walking to school. This is caused by vehicles parking close to the junction and, critically, the coming together of large vehicles unable to pass. I have submitted countless images of cars repeatedly ignoring parking restrictions, such as double yellow lines. Parking restrictions are key to the applicant's mitigation strategy. This mitigation has been proven conclusively over many years not to work. My pictures show many large vehicles which use Butt Lane daily, including, among others. Please write down these measurements. The Farmer's T7 tractor is 246 centimetres wide. The Owens VDL school coach is 255 centimetres wide. The Scania P250 lorry, 247 centimetres wide. And crucially, at the entrance to Ford, the carriageway is just 4.83 metres wide and would remain so post-development. How can large vehicles such as these pass when their combined width alone greatly exceeds that of the carriageway? It is a physical impossibility. They either wait, causing traffic to back up dangerously on the A458, or mount the pavement amongst children walking to school. Both options are a risk to life. The applicant tells us up to 81 additional cars would join this traffic attempting to leave Butt Lane between 8 and 9 a.m, the time of peak congestion and danger. 81 more vehicles would consequently increase the frequency and the severity of these queues enormously and increase the number of large vehicles on the road. This application will greatly increase instances of dangerous congestion. This application therefore must be refused on the grounds of an unacceptable cumulative impact on road safety. Its transport assessment does not reflect reality. Key mitigation has been proven over years not to work. And safe passage for the greatly increased traffic is a physical impossibility. Butt Lane cannot be considered as the access point for this or any future development.
Any councillors have any questions for that speaker?
Yeah, I'll take questions, please.
Are there any questions? No, then thank you.
Thank you very much for listening, members.
Okay, next speaker, Mark Duffel, please. The microphone's already on and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
So I'm a professional botanist with over 20 years experience of surveying habitats and teaching botanical identification and habitat classification. I have a national reputation for my botanical skills, acting as an assessor for national exams, as a national referee and verifier of records for the BSBI. Portings Meadows archaeology is described as earthworks covering the entire field and an exceptionally well preserved example of ridge and furrow ploughing earthworks. That's the historic environment record. The developers have only undertaken a preliminary ecological assessment. They have not undertaken an ecological impact assessment, which is the minimum required as advised by their ecologists and Shropshire Council. With the longevity of the site confirmed by the presence of medieval ridge and furrow, it is clear that the grassland was present at the site since before 1403 Battle of Shrewsbury. If this was woodland of the same historical period, it would have been automatically omitted from any Sandev or local plans. The developer's survey was undertaken in July 2025 when the site was baked dry. Compared to my survey in June 23, they acknowledged that the weather may have caused them to miss key indicators, which I believe is the case. Within my report, I identified over 80 species. The developer's ecologists with access to the whole site only identified 42 species. Their ecologists have misidentified the most important habitat, identifying the grassland as UK habitat, other neutral grassland. This seriously undervalues the site both ecologically and for biodiversity net gain credits. While some adjustments have been made, these are still incorrect. I undertook a national vegetation classification survey requiring a high level of skill and detail. In 23, finding the site was an example of lowland neutral meadow priority habitat of the MG5 community. This is a species-rich grassland of which 97% has been lost nationally since World War II and is considered an irreplaceable habitat under the NPPF. The site meets the criteria for selection as a SSSI, both for its diversity and uniqueness. Shropshire Council in 2009 stated they would safeguard existing areas of unimproved species-rich grassland by ensuring no further loss or degradation. The Sandev also states that UK priority species and habitats are nationally important. Porting Meadow with its MG5 grassland qualifies as such. I have serious concerns over the advice provided by Shropshire Council's ecologists. My concerns are supported by an experienced planning ecologist now based at Shropshire Wildlife Trust. Any planning decisions based on the developer's ecologist survey is flawed and could cause irreparable damage to a priority habitat and associated archaeology. My findings have been supported by the national charity Plant Life, UK Hub, Shropshire Wildlife Trust and the Marches Meadow Group. I strongly recommend at the very least further botanical, fungal and invertebrate surveys are undertaken, and please will the committee consider that the decision they made recently regarding a development in Bicton, which had similar examples of ridge and furrow, but less diverse ecology, that was sensibly turned down for planning permission.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Yes, Councillor Ollier.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, man. So in the report, it essentially says that the site may compromise of species rich, low, and yeah, you're saying that that is not, you know, that is 100%. That's what it is. It's not a may about it. It is.
Yes, it's not a may. The skills between myself and the ecologist is being compared. I'm a whole level higher. That sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not. I'm qualified for that. The habitat classification they used is of a lower level.
Right.
They're if nothing else, their biodiversity net gain that they're going to claim on it, they're claiming it as other neutral grassland. That I think they've adjusted the figure slightly. They put in at that figure, and it was going to have to pay out 400,000. My figure, when I got it calculated and got it checked by somebody independently, was 1.8 million. So for a start, they're seriously undervaluing it. But no, I've been independently checked by Plant Life, the national charity. They've reviewed my data. They agree with me. So it's not just me being an IMBY. I'm being a local ecologist. But yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for time.
Next speaker is Councillor Roger Evans. Roger, I'm sure you know how long you've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. But before my timing starts, can I just query the answer that was given about housing? I was unclear, but all the housing on this site is housing association houses, either owned or part owned by the housing association. There is no private, purely private housing on this site, as I understand it. And also a report I sent in January has only just been circulated on late letters.
Okay.
So, Chairman, can I be warned at 20 seconds, please, as I see the clock isn't working. This is an application to build on land which is classed as open countryside. That is, its listed designation in our current local plan is called SAMDEV, is not listed. It is an exception site. The recently withdrawn local plan and mentioned by the developers proposed that this site was capable of taking up to, I repeat, up to 75 mixed housing units. Note that 93 is now being proposed. Note please that this proposed change in designation, originally proposed in the now deleted local plan, was being actively challenged and actively considered by the appointed planning inspectors. No mention of this is in the report, and I argue the proposal is overdevelopment of the site and should be rejected. I argue also that there is a need for a full environmental, as was just said, impact assessment, which I think is needed by law. So I suggest that if it isn't rejected, it should at least be deferred whilst one is carried out. Demand for 93 affordable homes is also questioned. 73 of these, according to the report, is to come from adjacent parishes. No further details supplied. Adjoining parishes include Ponsbury, a very different parish to Ford, and I do question if this number of 73 is a realistic one. A smaller local affordable homes development was recently built nearby, and it took a long time for all those to be let. So overdevelopment and demand for affordable homes in this area, I challenge, and hence the application should be rejected. Next, road safety includes children wanting to access a school and having its entrance opposite the access road, contrary to what I understood should be council policy. Many comments are on file from local residents about this. Photographs are also on file showing present problems. The submitted highway report ignores all visible evidence shown him on a site visit, ignores all the raised at a packed local meeting, ignores everything others outside of the developers say. The solution to put yellow paint down and so stop all parking is plainly, to my mind, daft. Where will parents of those who need cars to bring in many of their 160 children attending the school park their cars whilst dropping them off? This is not a town school. Most children live miles away. Also, paint does not work without enforcement. Requests for enforcement officers to visit the area already have been ignored. To state that building a new car park for just 20 cars whilst deleting others is ludicrous. I do note that the cost of building this token extra car park is using education money. To build a zebra crossing will help those on the new estate, but create more problems locally, as even more local street parking will be lost. Estimates vary on the loss and suggest up to 20, with the combination of the access and the zebra crossing. The NPPF at section 117, as mentioned, states unequivocally reject applications that have impact on road safety. To give some idea of other problems, it has taken me up to 15 minutes at time just to pull out onto the main road. Others wanting to turn into Butt Lane off Welshpool Road have reported lots of near misses. This application should be rejected. Concerning access to education, the school is a popular one and is from September likely to be over full. There is absolutely no more room. There is a suggestion that an extra classroom could be built, but when? A car park owned by no one, monitored by no one, used by who, but it is very doubtful it will be by parents, is suggested, would be built using education money. More problems from parking incurred. A number of other questions need to also be asked, and so show the application should be rejected. These include effect on the community of this large change in its social makeup. Around 60% will be some will become social type housing. NPPF makes comment on this. Sustainability or lack of it. There is no employment in the area. The Welsh Government supplies local transport. They have previously threatened to stop their buses collecting and depositing passengers in England, including Ford, unless Shropshire Council increases their subsidy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Roger. Anybody on the committee have questions for Councillor Evans, please? Yes, Councillor Lumley.
Councillor Evans, you several times mentioned that the car park that's being provided, it's your understanding that that will come out of the £110,870 that's allocated for car park and classrooms or at the school. My reading of that was that that would be so they could improve their car park on the grounds. Which one is it, please?
I take it from the officers, but my reading of that is that there was £1 million originally said by education contribution from this development. It's now come down to 110,000 from memory, and it includes the building of a car park. And I take the officers' view on that.
Yes, you can do. Yeah.
So the on-site car park is being provided for by the developer. And then you are right, the Section 106 money will fund a school car park on the school site. As to the £1 million, I think there's obviously a negotiation to be had with developer contributions, and that first figure, I mean, we could get into a long debate on this, but the first figure that we receive through our consultation requests is astronomically high every time. And then there's a negotiation to be had in terms of what is proportionate for the development being proposed and how can it mitigate the direct impacts. Because the school, so the applicants then went and spoke directly with the school, and the school highlighted that they had some improvement plans in mind, and therefore the applicant is proposing to contribute to those exact improvement plans that the school wants. So rather than it just sitting in a pot for the council to spend wherever it wants across the county, it's specifically going to improve the local primary school.
Can I reply to that, Chairman?
Yes, sir. Just quickly.
The on-site car park provided by the developers, I am not sure who is going to control that. The school is refusing to be any part of it because it is not within their jurisdiction. So it is stuck by itself. Who has responsibility for that on-site car park is up in the air, because I don't know who will, because there's 3-bedroomed houses shown as being opposite with only 2 parking spaces for each house, and I wonder what will happen. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Okay, and our last speaker, please, is Alex Jones. The microphone's on, Alex, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. My name is Alex Jones. I'm the Technical Director at SH Partnerships, which is a sister company to Shropshire Homes. I'm sure all members will recognise as the applicant. At SH Partnerships, our focus is working with affordable housing providers to deliver much needed affordable homes for local people. There is a pressing need to deliver much more affordable homes in Shropshire, as confirmed by your affordable housing officer, with a figure of 5,290 households on the council's choice-based register. The 93 affordable dwelling proposal in this application includes 8 much-needed 1-bed bungalows, which will make a noticeable contribution to addressing this need. The site was a draft residential allocation in the Shropshire Local Plan Review before it was withdrawn, and confirms that the council concluded that it is a sustainable location to deliver new homes. The draft allocation includes a 5 criteria checklist, and a paragraph in 6.23 of the committee report confirms the proposals which we're presenting today comply with these. The application has been presented to committee due to the objection received by the ward councillor, parish council and local residents. We met with all of these prior to submitting the application and would like to take this opportunity to explain our response to the concerns they have raised. Disproportionate scale. The number of dwellings proposed has decreased from 102 on the original application down to 93 dwellings, and your affordable housing officer has confirmed a local need for 93 affordable homes proposed arising from Ford and the surrounding areas. Access to the site was proposed to be the northern end of Butt Lane in the draft allocation. Our detailed due diligence supported this as the safest location to provide the access to the site and to facilitate the improvements proposed to Butt Lane as detailed in the application. Separately, the proposed school drop-off would offer significant benefit by assisting in alleviating these current issues. A financial contribution is also being provided to assist with the necessary school places for children living on the development, which has been negotiated with the school and the education department at Shropshire Council. The impact on the junction of Butt Lane and the A458 has also been modelled and confirmed to operate comfortably under capacity after the proposals are complete, a matter confirmed by National Highways' response to the applicant. The statutory requirements for 10% net gain will be delivered in accordance with the biodiversity hierarchy. A surface water drainage system has been proposed that will ensure neighbouring residents are not at increased risk of flooding, and the site will provide a betterment overall for the use of various suds treatments. Any ridge and furrow will be recorded as part of the archaeology conditions which are set out in the committee report. We hope members will agree that the concern raised by local people have been subject to a thorough assessment by the applicant, consultees and your planning officers.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for this speaker, please? Yes, Councillor Walmsley.
So the school car parking area within the new developments come up for discussion. Who are you expecting to own and maintain that car park area?
So the housing provider will be the owner of the car park, and we will agree the strategy with the housing provider and the local school in terms of how we manage that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to question the speaker? Yes, Councillor.
I can see that this site, I can see why you've identified it and why the officers have decided that it needs to be considered. I'm concerned about the density. You've taken a few houses away, but why only so few? The density is still pretty high, especially given the concerns about traffic egress and so on next such a busy road. So you've sort of given a nod to that concern, but only a very small nod. And I'm also aware of widespread concern at the lack of play provision. Why is it not a larger facility, given the distance, I understand, to the nearest decent play area? 100 metres, I'm told.
So in terms of the sort of unit numbers against the 102 to 93 where we are today, that's been assessed with various policy requirements across the scheme. So we've looked at the policy against the POS needed to be required, and we do meet all those policies. And in terms of those units against traffic, that's also been assessed both locally and nationally by highways, and all is under the assessment criteria. In terms of the lap and leap, we're presenting a lap on site, and the leap just sits to the north. You can just see it under the schedule of accommodation there, so that can be accessed via the existing public right of way in the northeastern corner, and you can just walk through Quay Ridge, which some of the members did who visited site this morning, to witness the leap area, which is an existing area. So we'll actually have a lap and leap in close proximity to all residents.
Okay. Councillor Wade.
Could you explain why there seems to be such a variance in the ecological reports that you've presented to us and the ecological reports that we had presented just a few minutes ago? Because the difference is massive.
Yeah. So the ecology report that was, or the ecology findings that was reported a little earlier by one of the members of the public sitting behind me, was based on the route of public right of way, where our ecology report takes account of to the whole site. So there is a difference where our report is a whole site encompassing, where the previous one was purely along the public right of way, which is the red line on the screen there.
But when we went on the site visit this morning, the gentleman who spoke so eloquently earlier tried to get us to go over to that area that he was talking about, which wasn't on the public right of way. It was further over to the left of where we were walking, and he wanted to show us the ridges, but because it was going off the path, we didn't actually go there. So it was nothing to do with the public right of way. It was to do with the entire field.
Yeah, sorry, my comments on the public right of way were more in relation to when that survey took place. It was only along the route of the public right of way, because that was the only access you could have to that part of the site, where ours covered the whole site effectively.
Thank you. Councillor Lumby.
I appreciate your traffic survey said that the traffic going out onto the main road from Butt Lane, it was adequate. I do wonder, whilst you've got that corner and you've got the opportunity, why it wasn't considered to put a left-hand filter lane in there that would really ease the traffic and make it a wider junction for vehicles coming in. Why wasn't that considered?
I mean, it was looked at as part of the application, but when we did the due diligence and based on where the previous plan was, we did the due diligence around the current access, and that worked in terms of capacity. That also then ties into the National Highway correspondence, which ties into the A45 and Butt Lane access, so it wouldn't be a requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions. I'm now going to pause this meeting while we get IT to try and sort out the... Well, we're going to go as far as the decision.
Take the break at the end. Right.
Before next week.
Oh, okay, right, got it. Pause is cancelled. We'll carry on. Thank you. Right, we will now open this to debate by the committee. Please, over to members. Councillor Lumby.
This is a difficult one. The council said that anything in the draft local plan would be considered positively, and that was a way forward to get us out of the mess of 5-year housing need. So this was in the draft local plan. I wasn't quite clear on whether the 75 houses proposed were open market or whether they were affordable accommodation. Can I have a
chance to come in now? Yes. Yeah. So they would have been open market. We would rarely allocate 100% affordable because it is an exception to policy. So we don't allocate these types of sites. It would have been for open market with a policy compliant affordable provision.
So at 75 and that being open market, and I've seen some of the objections that say the people in the village would like the opportunity to be able to downsize, upsize, to move into an open market house. This proposal takes that away in the fact that it's then affordable. You've got to fit to the affordable criteria. So that's actually moving quite a bit away from the draft local plan in reality, which then takes you to the fact that it's 93 houses. Now, the reason why they can get 93 in, when you get affordable, they end up smaller. And so it's not rocket science to work out that they've managed to squeeze 93 in. I do like the idea of the zebra crossing. Zebra crossing outside of school is always an advantage. I did mention earlier when I was questioning, if you take away the speed calming measures, that you create another issue. And the irony is, if you put double yellow lines either side of a road, you create a faster environment because there's no cars parked to slow it down. So I'm not happy with the traffic measures. I know Gemma's give us an update as to whether it could be a raised table. I'm glad it's been clarified that the 110,000 is for improvements on the school's car park, as well as the provision of the 20 car parking spaces. And when we get to the application at item 8, I would rip your hand off for 20 parking spaces there. So I am a bit sort of like drawn at the moment as to this balance. I thought the officer's report particularly overly balanced it to accepting this, and I'm not quite so convinced. The only thing that I'm struggling to get past is the explicit assumption under CS5 that 100% affordable housing then negates all the fact that this is open countryside and is against the policy. I'll stop there because I'm just waffling. Thank you.
Chair, can I?
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's an important distinction we need to make when we're referring to the draft allocation, because we're not referring to the draft allocation as it was written. We're referring to all of the work that went into writing that draft allocation, and what that work is assessing a site in terms of, is it available, is it viable, and is it deliverable to get us sustainable development. So the 75 houses as worded was potentially put forward by the landowner at the time. It's not a cap on how many can be on that site. And also the weight we're attaching to it is all of the assessment work behind it, which contributes to, is this site a sustainable site for new housing growth? Not looking at whether 75 dwellings is appropriate. I think the CS5 exception, I think it's a very important exception, because it recognises that affordable housing is needed, and especially in the countryside, it can't just be directed to towns. But what it does do is it recognises that sites outside of development boundaries don't have the price tag attached to them. So as soon as you're within a boundary or you're an allocated site, there's a residential price tag which drives out any registered provider from delivering that site for 100% affordable housing. So I think that there is certainly a balance here, but I think it's a balance that needs to be weighed very carefully in terms of what the actual harms are under policy, and then comparing those against the benefits that are set out in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Walmsley.
Housing is a real problem across Shropshire, affordability and availability. And in general, I'm keen to see more affordable homes being built. It's a question about what this looks like in the longer term. So 93 homes, 52 social rented, 41 rent to buy, where presumably the occupiers are heading towards owning their own house. If they choose to move on to sell the house, what controls exist at that point? I assume they remain as affordable homes, but are there restrictions in who they can sell to? Could they be turned into rental properties rather than owner occupied? Could you give us a bit more information on what that looks like?
The exact mechanics of kind of how that all works over the lifetime of a development is a bit tricky, but I mean the section 106 is being very specific in this. If the recommendation is to approve, the section 106 will be very specific in terms of what it is securing in terms of tenure. The right to buy, yes, they will ultimately remain affordable. There is a cascading requirement within there where they have to offer it to local first, then further afield, and then further afield if there's no one who wants it. So it will be tied in perpetuity. I think there's quite a lot of hypotheticals you could look at in terms. So I don't know the exact for every single scenario.
Sorry, could somebody end up owning and then just rent it out to somebody else, or is that specifically prohibited?
It's not. Yeah, it wouldn't. As I said, the clauses are in relation to occupancy, aren't they, rather than in relation to ownership. But obviously, on this site, what you've got is a registered social landlord that will be obviously, and they have their own requirements in terms of. I'm sorry. The registered social landlord themselves would have requirements that they couldn't. As I said, the right to buy, where it goes into being purchased, doesn't constitute affordable housing in that same way, because it isn't affordable in perpetuity. So there are certain restrictions as to how that would be able to be dealt with, and the section 106 would deal with that.
that okay to understand? Or not? Yeah, I think so. Okay, Councillor Waite.
With biodiversity disappearing at the speed it is doing in this country, I know we have a real need for housing, especially in Shropshire, and affordable housing, especially in Shropshire. Living in Ludlow, where houses are very, very expensive, but I am concerned about the ecological damage that this housing estate is going to do, and we can't get it back once it's gone. And it is concerning me. And I know it sounds, oh, you know, lots of flowers and it's very pretty, but that's not what's worrying me. It's once it's gone, it's gone. And I am worried that they haven't done enough to mitigate the damage that this housing estate's going to do.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Lumley said, this is a hard one all round. Setting aside all the traffic issues and everything like that, like Councillor Waite, I am greatly concerned with the drip loss of biodiversity, not just locally but everywhere. It's just, and as she says, once it's gone, it's gone. When you look at the map or the plan, local plan of this site, yeah, it's in its ideal. It's sort of clearly defined, sitting alongside the village. All amenities fairly close to, everything like that. Regarding the density on this site, it's been mentioned, first of all, it was a lower figure, now it's a higher figure. I would much prefer that this went away in an ideal world and came back with less density and a better design so that we could rescue some of the biodiversity and possibly, if there's a full groundworks and everything done like it is suggested, that there is possibly, well, we know that there's land and furrow there from medieval times, suggested that there's reference to the possibility of a Roman road along the edge of one of the edges of the site and other groundworks. Now, if something seriously came up while this site was being developed, obviously everything gets pulled back. And you have to, you know, there would be a hold up while it was all investigated and looked at and before it could proceed again. I would much prefer this, to be honest, this scheme went away and there was a proper groundworks investigation done, a much more in-depth biodiversity one done by the council, and then something came back with a much less density on it. I personally will not support this scheme as it is.
Thank you. I'll just say from the chair, I think this is a really difficult one for us to try and decide. CS5 states affordable housing that meets a local need will be supported. We have to decide how much of a local need there is, whether that local need should include up to and including the outskirts of Shrewsbury, for instance. That's a decision to be made. 11D of the NPPF requires us to apply a presumption in favour of sustainable development unless there are clear reasons for refusal, known as the tilted balance. And I think it's for us as a committee to look at that tilted balance and make decisions based on one side or the other, and then come to a decision in the middle. Right, back to the committee, please. Somebody's in the over there. Yes, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. While I concur with all the concerns about the biodiversity net gain, I won't go into any more than that because it's been already said, and I support the comments made. I'm going to take things back to the parking. Sorry, if you don't mind. I've got a question first to do with this school on-site parking, and then I want to go back to the actual development on-site parking, if that's all right. To clarify for me, The school on-site parking, I wasn't sure if that was purely for school use, in other words, staff, or whether it was meant to be used in conjunction with the development on-site parking for parental parking at drop-off and pick-up times. I mean, if you can clarify that for me, I'd be very grateful.
I don't know that one, I'm afraid. I wasn't involved in those discussions between the applicant, the school and our education team. The only update I got was that a figure had been arrived at and it was enough to do what the school wanted to do on a proportionate basis.
So we don't know in effect, therefore, whether or not it adds to the drop-off and pick-up parking. We can only surmise, or we can just assume that the only pick-up and drop-off will be the 20 on-site, on-development parking spaces. Yeah? Can I continue with the next bit? Yes. Sorry, Chair. I did have a second bit, yeah, because it actually harps back to the comment that the on-development parking will be checked to make sure that residents will not park in there normally and therefore block up during school time, drop off and pick up. It goes back to my bugbear from the Northern Planning that these sites never seem to have sufficient parking for the residents. I realise that I probably can't push this too hard, but all the sites I see on Northern Planning, there's insufficient visitor parking for friends and family, for utilities, for Royal Mail, and therefore you're encouraging residents, if need be, to take up the parking areas as in this particular case. I just wish that as we go forward, we would see a little bit more facilities for parking and a little bit less pushing in the number of houses on site. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to pass now to Emma Green, who wants to give or Ollie wants to give some information about ecology.
Yes, thank you. I thought just because a few members have raised it, I thought I'd just clarify the position where we are. So the site is not protected, nor is it designated. Whilst we quite clearly heard that there's some dispute between the applicant's ecologist and residents of the village, what I would say is that the applicants, on receipt of the first round of objections as to the validity of the submitted ecology statement, have prepared a further technical note, which our in-house ecologists have also reviewed, and they remain of the position that the accurate classification of habitats has been recorded on site. The development will be subject to the mandatory BNG requirement. So if there is a change in habitat and the numbers shift between now and post-planning, then they will have to deliver 10%. BNG is a post-planning matter. Yes, we require some information up front, but that's purely us as a council trying to front load it. We're not consenting or granting anything to do with BNG at this moment in time. So there will be a further stage at which biodiversity is considered and 10% will have to be achieved. It's already known that they won't be able to achieve it on site. So there will be an off-site requirement, but what is on site is considered significant in BNG terms, that a 106 is needed to secure the monitoring contribution towards that. So I think the biodiversity, yes, we've heard a lot about it, but it has been an issue that the officers are satisfied it's been concluded, and the report is correct in terms of how it classifies the sites and what the mitigation measures are in regards to ecology and biodiversity. Density has been picked up a few times as well. I'm surprised that members are saying it's dense or overdevelopment, if I'm being honest. Yes, the housing is centred towards the middle of the site, but I think there is quite a lot of green spaces around it. As we heard by the applicant in their speech, it is policy compliant on POS terms. So if we're then stepping into a realm of it's overdevelopment and it's too dense, we'd have to then query, is our policy good enough? Archaeology, they've done a archaeological survey that was submitted with the application. The potential for remains is not significant enough to warrant trial trenching without, in advance of the condition. I think it's set out in the report in terms of what the potential of the archaeological remains are, and it stays around the medium to high but it recognises that it's an agricultural field that's been worked for many years. The chances of that, lessens the chances for potential. So I think the pre-commencement condition for a written scheme of investigation is the correct way to deal with the archaeological issues on this application. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Holyhead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd say the main thing I'm concerned about really is the scale and impact on the settlement character. I know that we do need affordable homes, but I just feel that it doesn't mean that we should do so, build them irresponsibly. We're dealing with a village of approximately 300 dwellings and a population of 650. And these proposed 93 units are going to increase the affordable homes in the village from 30% to 50%, which is actually 3 times the national average. And that's going to increase the population by 40%. And I think you can argue that this represents a substantial and disproportionate expansion of the village of Ford, resulting in a level of growth that is not reflective of its rural character or its scale. The site does occupy a prominent edge of settlement and gateway location where development of this density and extent would fundamentally alter the transition between its built form and the open countryside. And I think the introduction of a large, relatively dense estate in this location leads to the urbanisation of a small rural settlement, erosion of the village's distinct identity and character, and harm to the visual amenity at a key approach into the settlement. I would argue that this application can be considered to represent overdevelopment and in fact fails to respond appropriately to its context, contrary to Core Strategy CX6 and SAMDEV MD2. Okay. I would also say that it's in conflict with the spatial strategy in the countryside location. Obviously, it does lie outside of a defined settlement boundary, and we know that when it's that, this is a strictly controlled area of growth and sustained development. And while the policy CS5 does allow for affordable housing as an exception, which is what Councillor Lumbie did mention, I think that's dependent on, one, the scale and nature of the development being appropriate to the settlement, and the proposal contributing positively to rural sustainability. And I think in this case, the scale and overall impact of the scheme does exceed what can be reasonably justified. Again, you could call this an unjustified incursion into the countryside, undermining the spatial strategy of a local plan that's contrary to CS5 and MD7A. And the other thing that does concern me is this massive variance between the reports we've been given and then contract from sort of outsiders, but people who do have an expertise in the area. Even today, we've seen comments about the ecology being based on the right-of-way that was through, and yet, according to Councillor Wade, it was actually referring to a different area. So there's just that balance in my mind. And I think that, as the gentleman said, this site may comprise, but it does actually comprise of species-rich lowland meadow. And that is actually a recognised eco-priority habitat that's of significant ecological value. And I just think that, that as Councillor Wade said, and that once this is gone, it's gone. And yes, you can move a percentage of it somewhere else, but from talking to other people in that field, it doesn't always it doesn't always work. Obviously, you've got the infrastructure and capacity issues with the roads, photographic evidence, or all sorts of things. I mean, we all know as local people, we know our own roads, we know when they're bad. It doesn't take a report to tell us. And in terms of that, the only thing I would say is it's not a question of whether affordable housing is needed, it is, but whether this is the right development in the right place. And on the evidence I've seen, the cumulative harm in terms of the highways, biodiversity, sustainability, all is significant, and in my view would outweigh the benefits. And so therefore I would be against this application. Thank you.
Councillor Lumbie.
We're about ready for a proposal.
Carry on.
So I propose that we go against officer's recommendation and refuse this application. It's outside the settlement boundaries in open countryside. Whilst the draft local plan talked about 75 open sale houses, this one represents 93. The local plan was withdrawn, so you can't use that to weigh, but then we can still use it in some respects as to how you got there, but that would have been for 75 open sales houses. I believe 93, or the proposal is represents overdevelopment of the site. At 93, with 46 social housing, this tips the balance of the mix of the village and, pinching a word, changes the character. And it substantially increases the village. And I think that goes against what sustainable housing is meant to be about. Having the junction outside the school presents a hazard not mitigated by the zebra crossing, and taking the chicane away. We're not satisfied that on a traffic basis that this is a sound scheme. In respect to the ridge and furrow and grassland ecology with specific biodiversity loss, I think it isn't about the net gain of any diversity, it's about the loss of this specific diversity, which I think we can have as a ground. Just trying to read the last bit, which has gone into spider writing. I think I've probably said enough. Anybody can add to any of that? Yeah, because we always get asked what are the grounds, so I've gone quite specific with a whole set of grounds. Whether you agree with them or not.
I think if that's what members are wanting to do, then I think they need to satisfy themselves that the tilted balance scenario. So you listed a load of harms. Were they significant and how are they demonstrable?
Yes,
that's the test. So we have to grant planning permission unless the harms outweigh the benefits and the harms are significant and demonstrable.
I just want to say, members, I think we need to be very clear when we're doing an overturn on the basis of the tilted balance. The officer has set out very clearly what the benefits and the harms are and has given you our indication of those weightings. The information is there in the report. You can draw different weightings, but I think you need to be very clear in what you're instructing us, what those weightings are, because I would say this is highly likely to go to an appeal scenario and we would need to be clear on what we're defending for you. I would caution about throwing everything at the kitchen sink at it in this balancing exercise. I think if that is where you're wanting to go, you need to be very clear on what are your points where you think our weighting is incorrect, what your weighting would therefore be, and what that overall tilting balance will then become. Just
remembered what the last thing was, and that was in relation to the 93 dwellings for being affordable. I don't think that there is sufficient evidence before us that there is a need for 73 either in the village or very close by, and the fact that it flippantly refers to providing affordable dwelling for Shrewsbury, I don't provide that gives us much weight at all in relation to that. Anybody want to give anything else in relation to anything else? Yes.
Thank you. I'm probably the only person that is going to disagree with pretty much everybody, I'm afraid. I really take on board everybody's concerns. I've listened to all the councillors and obviously the locals, and I totally understand their concerns. I do have to reflect on the benefits outweighing the negatives, I'm afraid, and 100% affordable housing is a huge benefit in my eyes and does carry substantial weight. So at the moment I'm minded to support the application. I was going to say, I'm wondering whether it would help the debate if we almost went through each of the points and people think about what they're weighting. It's almost in your own mind. It's like you need to go through 7.3, look at each of the lines, put against that your own weighting and do this balancing exercise individually and then come together collectively to discuss that so that you can, to help your decision making.
Yes.
I'd just like to air a caution that we need to have reasons for that proposal, and that is all I'm trying to help the committee is forming.
Sorry, Chair. The only thing we can, in regards to the proposal, I think it's quite clear that officers' advice is that it's not a particularly defendable reason for refusal. So if a seconder needs to second it and you need to vote on it, so be it. But officers have provided their advice in regards to that proposal.
Councillor Wade.
Chair, I think the problem is that at the moment, the majority of the committee are feeling very uncomfortable with this decision. And being asked to prove why we're feeling uncomfortable when we've all explained our reasons for it makes us even more uncomfortable and makes it feel like we're being put under pressure to change our opinions, which is worse. Now, I understand you mitigate, if you destroy a habitat, you mitigate it by putting it somewhere else. But you can't mitigate destroying that habitat because it's gone. So you say, well, we're going to put it somewhere else. You cannot replant those plants. You cannot move those furrows. You can't change that field and put it somewhere else. So for me, that is my reason for not being happy with this. Other people might have different reasons. Yes, I'm really happy about the idea of affordable housing. What I'm not feeling comfortable with is the way we're being treated right now, asking us to prove our reasons for why we're not happy with what we've been presented with. Maybe if we've been presented with something else, not this, and maybe if the reports had matched up as being so different from each other, we might not have been so uncomfortable. That road is very dangerous. We've seen the photographs. Children could get hurt on that road. It's just a miracle they haven't. So putting a zebra crossing in, I don't think is going to stop idiots driving down that road so quickly once it gets slightly wider. There's another reason. So there's lots of reasons, but I'm not comfortable with the way we've just been asked to prove why we're not feeling comfortable.
Councillor Connolly. Sorry. Okay. Councillor Jeffcott.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to the debate carefully, and I was particularly found myself agreeing with what Councillor Holyhead said, and the national policies he referred to, which we have to have in mind. If this development was adjacent to or within Shrewsbury, then I could see where you would be saying that the benefits of the affordable housing and as an exception site for the whole of Shrewsbury, that would apply, but it isn't. It's in Ford, which is a considerable distance away from the rest of Shrewsbury. So I think the fact that it is such a disproportionate change to the existing village, I think that does carry additional weight based on the location of where the plan is. So I'm sympathetic to the arguments I've heard from a number of people from the community that this would change the character of the community very substantially, and it wouldn't be helping the affordability issue locally, it would be helping the affordability issue somewhere else. So that carries a lot of weight. The biodiversity issue, I think it is extremely important that we make an informed decision on this, and that there does seem to be considerable weight I attach to what I've heard about the question marks over the biodiversity assessment of what is there on site. And I recognise we have to follow the law, and the idea of offshoring, off-siting biodiversity is legally attested. But nevertheless, this type of the type of diversity we're looking at is not something you can just whistle up just like that. It's something you would take decades or centuries to create. You'd have to work really hard to do it. And if I supported the what's just the proposition to reject, I would not be saying no, that this site should never ever be developed ever. But I would be minded to approve a more limited proposal, which was meeting local rather than area need or county need, which also allowed a portion of the biodiversity on site to be maintained as it is on site, rather than being removed somewhere else. So you'd achieve two benefits. One, you'd be closer to the requirements of the community. Two, you would maintain the diversity of the site because a section of the site would be preserved. So that would be two areas of benefit, if you like, which is why I'm minded to reject unless I can be given a very clear exposition of an alternative way to vote, which would bring that about. And I would say to the applicants, it would be easier for you to come back with a different proposal than to take the council to court.
Councillor Connolly, did you want to come in on anything, or shall I pass on to somebody else?
Just briefly, thank you. As
Yeah.
long as I've been on Southern Planning, we've always been asked to give reasons as to why we are either supporting or objecting to something. So I appreciate Councillor Wade's comments, but we have always been required to have a reason as to why we are making the decision we are making. Thank you.
Councillor Waltley.
It's great to sit in the Southern Planning Committee meeting where the debate is doing exactly what it should do, and I'm moving from thinking, oh, I should support this to, or I should turn it down, and I still haven't decided. I think the advice we've been given by the planning officers about assessing weight and indicating where we disagree is absolutely right. I think everything that we've said we see as reasons for turning this down does sit in the harms section of the report. So there is agreement there. It's about how much weight we give to that. The area I'm struggling with most is that I have to say I don't have full confidence in either the ecology or traffic assessments that have been presented to us. I found the gentleman who spoke about the ecology, his arguments very compelling, and I find it difficult to see why you would see significantly greater biodiversity along a public footpath than in other parts of the field where it appears to have been farmed essentially as one whole plot for many, many years. Traffic movements, we've heard motive speech about the problems that already exist. We've got photos. I mean, a photo is only a snapshot in time, but it does look like an area that could, is very foreseeably going to cause problems. I think the biggest area where I have a disagreement with what I see in this report is actually about the car parking. It attracts substantial weight in favour of the development at the moment, and I just see that car park as becoming full of residents' cars and being owned by a housing association that doesn't want to repeatedly find its own residents for using it. Unless we could really nail down what enforcement looks like to the degree of when the restrictions apply and how often somebody goes out with a ticket machine and puts tickets on cars, I don't feel comfortable about that working. And I will conclude by saying I still haven't made my mind up, and I look forward to hearing what others have to say.
Thank you. I'll just say from the chair, we've been an hour and 20 minutes now debating this, which is great because we'll debate it until midnight if necessary to try and come to the right. No, not midnight, but because it's getting very warm anyway. I know we've had a proposal, not a second, and I'll come to Councillor Lonnie next. But let me just throw into the pitch that there is a possibility of everything that's been said about biodiversity and everything. And this is a full application as to whether we should be looking at perhaps deferring this application because we need more information about specific things, or we are concerned about highway safety and we are concerned about the biodiversity and the fact that that land might be valuable ecological land that perhaps needs further investigation, and maybe larger areas of it need to be left. I'll just throw that into the pot for what it's worth, but I'll go to Councillor Lumley now.
Yes, just back to the advice I was given when I made my proposal that we need to go through and do what weight is applied, which is great because I sat there and I started to do it, and then I thought, and where's my expertise in this? Where am I qualified to give these? And so then that would be the next thing from planners. When we decide that something substantial weight is actually only modest, they will come back and say, well, we're actually the experts in this, and we apply X and Y. And so actually you're wrong, councillors. So we get to the stage where we've made a proposal and that's what we go with, and they work that out, or we need 6 months of training to work out what all these moderate weights and all the other weights are, because I think it's unfair on us to spring that on us now. I gave substantial reasons why I think it should be go against officer's recommendation, only for me to be batted with that. No, you need the weighted balance, and I think that's unfair. So I would like a seconder to my proposal, please.
Councillor Clayton.
I've got two words going through my mind this entire time, and it's national policy. We've heard, honestly, some fantastic comments, especially the ecology. That was absolutely fantastic. And I know no matter what decision we make today, it will negatively affect somebody. No matter what we do, there is effectively, we don't have a choice. We will have to negatively affect somebody. But every single time, two words come back to my mind, and it's national policy. That's it. That really is just it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holyhead.
Can I just second Councillor Lumby, please? I don't know if I have to give any more.
Sorry, Councillor Lumby, can you just clarify for me what, just in brief, the ground so that I can take a vote on it, please?
So it's outside the settlement boundary, it's in open countryside, so it goes against policy. The draft local plan, that said 7 open sale properties, and that may have been thought of with that open plan in mind, whereas this is for 93 affordable housing. 93 represents overdevelopment of the site, and we can talk about if there's enough space for all the houses, but actually 93 represents a lot of traffic movements, and we go on to traffic later on. At 93 affordable housing with 46 social housing, this tips the balance of having a mix in the village, so that the whole village is substantially increased in relation to affordable housing. And that changes the character of the village. It's a large increase in the size of the village, and I think that goes against sustainable housing within that area. Having the junction outside the school presents a hazard not mitigated by a zebra crossing, and the removal of the chicanes further don't mitigate the dangers of it, and in relation to the closeness of the junction with the main road. The loss of the ridge and furrow and grassland ecology with the specific biodiversity loss, the gain in biodiversity won't make up for that specific loss. And then there's the alleged need for affordable housing. We're not satisfied that the evidence there that there is a need for 93 affordable either within the village or close by, and that they're effectively saying affordable housing for nearby Shrewsbury, which is not what the village is there for. Is that everything? Everybody?
I was just going to say, it's either members can give us the policy, or we could have delegated powers to add the necessary policies and the MPPF aspects to it to make it a full and rounded reason for refusal.
Yeah.
Microphone. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Colin. Oh, Councillor Taylor, sorry. Okay, so in terms of overdevelopment, so it fails to respond appropriately to it. So that's contrary to core strategy CS6 and then SAMDEV MD2. Then you have about the spatial strategy. So that's an unjustified incursion into the countryside that undermines the spatial strategy, which is CS5 and then MD7A. The biodiversity loss that conflicts with the NPPF biodiversity objectives, core strategy CS17 and SAMDEV MD12. Issues with infrastructure. It fails to demonstrate that it can be supported by adequate infrastructure or operate as a sustainable form of development. That's contrary to CS8, CS6 and the NPPF. I don't know if you didn't bring it up about flooding, did you? But no. But it's, you know, it doesn't demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that it would not increase flood risk on or off site. I don't know if we can bring that in, but that would be core strategy CS18 and also national policy. Those are my little additions. Thank you.
I'm still quite happy to delegate the bits in between for the other bits of policies.
Okay, thank you. So we are ready to go to the vote.
Okay, so the proposal then is to refuse on the basis of the development being outside the settlement boundary, contrary to policy, overdevelopment of the site, a change of the character of the village, a large increase in size rather of the village, hazardous highway junction and removal of the chicanes, loss of the ridge and furrow and grassland ecology and biodiversity, and then the CS6, CS5, MD2, MD7, CS17, CS8 and 6, and CS18.
You've missed alleged need of affordable housing.
And the alleged need for the affordable housing.
Insufficient infrastructure.
Insufficient infrastructure.
They've not satisfactorily demonstrated it won't increase flood risk elsewhere.
Not satisfactory, shown that it won't increase flood risk elsewhere. So if everyone's clear on that, if you could please tell me whether you wish to vote for, against, or wish to abstain. So Thomas Clayton.
What is that, for or against the proposal?
Yeah. For refusal or against refusal. Or abstain. Against refusal. Rachel Connolly.
Against.
George Hollyhead.
For.
Ben Jeffcott.
For.
Nigel Lumbey.
For.
Mark Owen.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Beverly Waite. For. Sam Walmsley.
Against.
Nick Hignett.
Against. Thank you. So that is carried. 6 votes to 4. Thank you for your patience and debate on that. We'll now pause.
Yeah.
Pause and try and sort out IT problems. Give us a chance to catch up, Beth. Thank you.
I think if you go on might have been a bit of a rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
Them all.
Yeah.
Them all.
5 minutes. Looking at us. No. There's nobody looking at it yet. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to this Southern Planning Committee meeting, and we go to item 6 on the agenda now. Swancourt Energy Limited anaerobic digestion plant at Swancourt Farm, Bridge North. Thank you. Over to the planning officer.
Thank you. So yeah, this application relates to an established anaerobic digestion facility at Swancourt Farm. It's approximately 2 kilometres east of Bridge North. It seeks planning permission under Section 73 to vary conditions attached to a 2010 consent. Next. Yeah, so here we have the red line boundary of the application site. Next. And again, this is a Google Earth image, so you can see the context of the site. We can come back to that if we need to. The key changes proposed are threefold. It's an increase in feedstock throughput at the facility to 120,000 tonnes per annum. A change in the feedstock composition away from energy crops to an entirely waste-derived materials, including food waste, liquid waste and manures, and localised improvements to the site access onto the A454. Next, yeah, sorry. So here are some images of the site access. Yeah, carry on. Next. It's a bit delayed. Yeah, so here we have a westerly direction, and then next slide. And here we have the easterly direction. So these will probably show you some of the improvements that they're going to be. So they're proposing to alter the curb so that, as you see, there's been a lot of run over there by lorries turning left out of the site, and it's to deal with those. So yeah, so other than those curb works, no new built development is proposed beyond those. The application has been assessed in the context of an existing and long established operation, and members should note that Section 73 applications are a recognised mechanism to vary conditions where the principle of development has already been established. In terms of consultation responses on this, there are no statutory objections. Furthermore, regulatory services and ecology raise no objections. Highway officers consider the impact of additional vehicle movements to be negligible and subject to mitigation, including those access improvements. There have been objections from the parish council and local residents, primarily relating to odour, traffic, cumulative impacts and the appropriateness of using a Section 73 applications. These concerns have been carefully considered within the officer's appraisal. Members will also be aware that additional representation has been received in relation to this case, which was included as an update through the publication of late representations. Since then, further representations have been received in the form of a solicitor's letter and 2 additional objections from members of the public on the grounds of odour concerns. These have all been published online in advance of this meeting, and the solicitor's letter has been made available for you in paper form. I would just like to take the opportunity to assure members that the Officers' Committee report has been subject to legal review ahead of the meeting. The solicitor's letter suggests that a Section 73 application is inappropriate and a new full application should be submitted covering the entire site. This matter has previously been addressed within Section 6.2 of the committee report. In addition, 5 points have been raised within the conclusion of the letter, and I would just like to take the opportunity to rebut some of them individually. So firstly, that the application has been assessed on the basis of an incorrect baseline. So the suggestion within the letter is that the consents noted as 12-01455/MAW and 15-01864/FURL are invalid and therefore do not increase the feedstock allowance for the facility. The fact of the case is that members should be aware that that it is the original consent 10-03881 MAW that permitted feedstock allowance of 25,000 tonnes. Since then, the site has been operating on the basis of 70,000 tonne feedstock limit. If, for whatever reason, the 2012 and 2015 permissions are invalid and the site is operating in breach of those permissions, it's still reasonable for the decision maker to use the 70,000 tonnes as a baseline, as this operation would now be immune from planning enforcement action, now in excess of 10 years. So we're quite comfortable that the baseline is acceptable. The second point they raised is that the application's acceptability in Greenbelt policy terms has not been assessed. So I just refer you to section 6.8.1 of the committee report, where it has been. The next one is that the applicant's application's impact on air pollution has not been assessed. Again, I refer you to sections 6.4 and 6.5 of the committee report. The next suggestion is that the assessment of potential amenity impacts is misleading and entirely unsatisfactory. This is a subjective view, and amenity impacts have been considered within the committee report, and I'm sure will be debated too. And finally, that the application represents a creeping intensification of the AD facility. It fails to assess multiple serious issues that should be addressed by means of a full planning application covering the whole facility as it now operates and is proposed to operate. And so just in response to that, a Section 73 permission results in a new planning consent where consideration has been given to the impacts resulting from the changes in exactly the same manner as it would be considered through a new full planning application. So moving on, in terms of amenity, the operation is already permitted and is subject to existing controls. The proposal does not introduce new emission points, and feedstocks will continue to be handled within enclosed systems with odour mitigation, with a condition preventing external storage. With regards to transport, the increase in throughput is expected to generate relatively modest uplift of appropriately 9 additional two-way vehicle movements per day. This is not considered to result in a severe impact on the highway network in accordance with the MPPF. In relation to environmental effects more broadly, the proposal has been screened under the EIA regulations and is not considered to constitute EIA development. Overall, my assessment concludes that the proposal would not give rise to unacceptable adverse impacts either individually or cumulatively when considered against the existing baseline and regulatory controls that are in place. The development is therefore considered to accord with the development plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. Accordingly, the recommendation before members is to grant planning permission subject to conditions, including controls on feedstock throughput, storage and access improvements, with delegation to officers to review the conditions attached to the 2010 consent and redraft and reattach to the consent as appropriate, having applied the 6 tests as set out in the MPPF. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the planning officer, or we go on to speakers? Yes, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. It's a quickie. I'm easily confused here. 413. The report says that the Environmental Agency will accept increases to 115,000 tonnes, and then later on 682, they say that it's acceptable up to 120. Which one is it?
Yes. The proposal is for 120,000 tonnes. I have attached their response verbatim for members, and they have made an error there where it does refer to 115. Whether that was something that was part of their environmental permit sits outside of this planning decision in any case. But yeah, it is an error. It is in there that I didn't necessarily correct. And yes, the assessment should be on the basis of 120,000, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on to speakers, please. 2 speakers on this one. First, Rebecca Turner. So that's going to be read out by the solicitor.
Okay, so this is a statement of Rebecca Turner, who's against the application. So I'm Rebecca Turner. My family and I live in the nearest privately owned property to the Swancote energy site, approximately 160 metres away. I speak for my family, for Henry Carver and family at Hokum, and other neighbours at Swancote and in nearby hamlets. Swancote is a small rural settlement in the Greenbelt, comprising detached small holdings, houses and cottages. Thank you for allowing comments on the application, which seeks to vary 3 planning conditions attached to the original 2010 consent, described as an on-farm agricultural anaerobic digestion plant. You should have received our urgent detailed letter from Richard Buxton's solicitors. If you have not had time to properly consider that letter, I respectfully ask that determination of this application be deferred. As Buxton's explained, this application must be refused because the council has no powers to grant it. Granting permission would be unlawful. The Buxton's letter clearly sets out serious planning and legal problems, including how the application's DMR misleads and misdirects the committee. The arguments in the Buxton's letter are not new. Since December 2025, residents, our planning consultant and our parish council have lodged detailed objections to this application with the planning authority, and we have corresponded extensively with officers and the EA. We have also raised repeatedly ongoing serious amenity impacts of the AD site, namely persistent foul odour, pollution, noise, intrusive lighting, late night operations, heavy traffic, flooding, near misses on the treacherous A road and digestate dumping. Countless complaints have been made over 15 years to the operator, the county and parish councils, councillors, RMP, the Environment Agency and Environmental Health. Investigations are ongoing. Granting consent for the proposal will make matters significantly worse. No very special circumstances have been advanced that would justify such a serious escalation of an industrial operation in the Greenbelt. The amenity complaints procedure, a condition imposed on the original consent to provide a clear process for complaints, in practice allows the operator to mark their own homework. It is unfit for purpose. Our position is, number one, it is not possible for the council to permit the current section 73 application. No power exists to change the description of the original development in the way the application proposes, and any decision to grant permission would be unlawful, leaving the council open to judicial review. And number two, even if permission could be granted under section 73, which it cannot, there are multiple insurmountable legal issues with the application and its assessment in the DMR. A, it has been assessed using the wrong starting assumptions. B, its acceptability against Greenbelt policy has not been assessed. C, its impact on air pollution has not been assessed. D, the assessment of amenity impacts is grossly misleading and entirely unsatisfactory. And E, overall, the application would greatly increase the industrial intensification of the AD facility that has been happening since 2010. It fails to assess multiple serious and cumulative issues that should be addressed by a full planning application covering the whole of the facility as it now operates and as it is proposed to operate. For all these reasons, we ask you to refuse this application. Residents are relying on you to address these serious issues. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And ask questions because the person is not present. So move on to the next speaker, which is Nick Williams, who's speaking for the applicant. Thank you. Nick, as I'm sure you know, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Afternoon, members. Swancoat AD Plant is an established modern renewable energy facility that treats food waste and agricultural feedstocks to produce biogas and nutrient-rich digestate, supporting landfill diversion, low carbon energy generation and sustainable farming. In response to industry changes in legislation prioritising food security, the plant will cease using energy crops such as maize and will instead rely solely on waste feedstocks. As these generate less biogas per tonne, an increase in feedstock is required to maintain existing renewable energy output. The proposal therefore seeks to increase the permitted feedstock capacity from 70,000 to 120,000 tonnes per annum. The NPPF directs that planning decisions should focus on whether the proposed land use is acceptable in principle, rather than regulating pollution or emissions. These matters are addressed through separate regulatory regimes, which planning authorities should assume will operate effectively. The applicant already has an Environment Agency permit in place for the increased feedstock, approved in March this year. The EA has also confirmed that there have been no substantiated odour or other complaints relating to current operations. Liquid waste and farm manure will be delivered on a just-in-time basis with no on-site storage required. Manure will arrive in sheeted trailers and will be delivered to a feed hopper equipped with a lid and carbon filter to abate potential odour emissions. Liquid waste will be discharged into a liquid feed tank via sealed delivery tankers and a direct pipe connection, ensuring no odour release. Food waste will continue to be delivered in a just-in-time basis, with deliveries carefully controlled to ensure volumes do not exceed the capacity of the enclosed reception buildings, which are fitted with odour scrubbers and maintained on a negative air pressure. There will be no more waste on site at any one time than there currently is. An EA-regulated digestate spreading environmental management system is in place to assess impacts of land spreading in advance, minimising pollution and amenity risks. Swancoat Energy is and will remain a family-run farm diversification business and an important local employer. The business is actively involved in the community, sponsoring and supporting Worfield Cricket Club and School, the Bridgnorth Run and Bridgnorth Rugby Club, also providing them with a pitch. In summary, the proposal is policy compliant, delivers clear economic and environmental benefits, and gives rise to no unacceptable adverse impacts. It is therefore hoped that members can support the officer's recommendation for approval today. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Williams? Councillor Lumley.
You mentioned energy output. Nowhere in the report does it actually say what that is. What sort of energy output have you got? So,
yeah, so it's 6 megawatt of electric. Gas and electric, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So this is an increase of some 50,000 tonnes. How many wagon loads is that equivalent to going in and out the side?
That's all in the officer reports. Highways have had a look through it and confirmed that they're happy with the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Can I ask you, how do you respond to the comment by the local parish council about the ammonia and the smell and so on, the controls?
Yeah, as mentioned in my response there, it's regulated by an EA permit. So members of the parish council, members of the public can complain to the EA or the council. That will then trigger an investigation by the EA, and if they then decide whether it's a substantiated complaint or not in terms of odour, and there's no history of any substantiated complaints in terms of odour or anything else from the site.
Yeah, so I was going to ask the same question actually, because it said the facility has been in operation for a number of years, well over 10, without receiving any complaints through the environmental permitting regime. And yet the statement read out by Rebecca Turner suggested there'd been multiple complaints, but you're not aware of any complaints through the official regime.
I mean, the EA themselves in their consultation response said that they didn't even mention the word substantiated. They said there hasn't been any complaints, odour or other, to them over the years.
Okay, thank you. I think everybody okay? Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So I open this to debate. Committee members. Councillor Wanley.
Thank you, Chair. So over the past 10 years, I've spent quite a lot of time working with anaerobic digestion projects, and everything I see about this application in terms of how the site's evolved from 2010, the potential concerns of local residents, responses from people operating it seem entirely typical. None of it makes me question the recommendation that's made in the officer's report to me. The letter that arrived around from the solicitors around specific legal concerns made me very much think of something Councillor Lumbey said in the last debate, which is that we are close to lay people in terms of planning. This seems like very technical planning law questions. So I was first of all very pleased to hear the response from our planning officers going through that and breaking it down into something we could easily understand, and confirming that the council remains happy that they are behaving, or their recommendation to approve this remains legal. I'll listen to any comments from other councillors, but at the moment I'm certainly minded to approve.
Okay, thank you. And I could say from the chair that I agree, and I think it's nice to know that the legal advice suggests that we are able to look at this application, otherwise we wouldn't even be considering it now, especially when it's a very last minute letter received. Councillor Connolly.
Thank you. I'm just looking at Appendix 1, the conditions. talking about records of quantities and types of feedstock shall be maintained and made available, and also receipt of feedstocks be monitored by local planning authority. I think this is one of the concerns that a lot of people have about lots of different applications, is what happens afterwards, is, you know, if there's any enforcement required. So, you know, could you just give me an example? How often would the local planning authority need to, have I missed it? Is it written down?
No, it's just that a record would be maintained. So at any point in time, should an investigation need to occur, that we would legitimately be able, through that condition, to say, well, you know, you've had a responsibility to maintain that record. We want to see the record to, you know, undertake our investigation to make sure that that has been adhered to. So it's the mechanism by which that condition, just in itself, you know, is limited to 120, becomes enforceable. So there's certain tests that conditions have to meet, and that's the sort of enforceability test of that.
So is there a requirement for the applicant to prove 120 or less every year?
No, it's not on every year. As I said, it's simply that they must keep a record, and as I said, we would then, through a planning contravention notice, I suppose it would want to be through a planning contravention notice, we could request that information, and it would be available to us. I think, as I said, if we were getting into the realms of, you know, we were checking every year, it's quite a cumbersome matter when this achieves exactly what we need it to achieve. Which is that it's limited, and that we can check that it's limited when we are required to. So,
Councillor Lumby.
I at the moment will be to support this 6 megawatts of gas and electric low carbon energy is quite substantial, and more importantly, the increase is to allow it to be from waste rather than grown crops. So again, that's an incredible positive at a relatively small 9 in and out increase in vehicle traffic. So I'm inclined to support this.
Thank you. Anybody else, or anybody like to make a proposition? Proposal. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Okay, seconded. Thank you. Okay, we go for the vote.
Okay, so we have a proposal to accept the planning officer's recommendation subject to the conditions set out in the report. Please can you confirm if you are for, against, or wish to abstain? Thomas Clayton?
For.
Rachel Connolly?
For.
George Hollyhead?
For.
Ben Jeffcott?
For.
Nigel Lumby?
For.
Mark Owen?
For.
Colin Taylor?
For.
Beverly Waite? For. Sam Walmsley?
For.
Nick Hidbett?
For.
Everyone.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving straight on now to item 7 on the agenda, proposed residential development land off Benthall Lane and Bridgebank, Moseley, Shropshire. Over to the planning officer, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. This application seeks outline planning permission for the development of 3 dwellings on land off Benthall Lane and Bridge Road in Benthall, with all matters reserved for future consideration. Members are therefore asked to consider the principle of residential development on the site. Next slide. The site comprises 3 parcels of land on the edge of Benthall within the Broseley Conservation Area and in proximity to existing residential properties. Could you have the next slide? This application follows a previous refusal where insufficient information was provided regarding heritage impacts. Heritage impact assessment has now been submitted addressing those concerns. Next slide. So this aerial photograph here shows the site in relation to Benthall and to Broseley. The next slide will show same image but with the conservation area, and the brown marks are the listed building in relation to the site. In terms of consultation responses, the Conservation Officer raises no objection in principle, concluding that in principle the proposals would result in no harm to heritage assets. Ecology and archaeology raise no objection subject to the conditions, including biodiversity net gain and archaeological investigation. The Highway Authority notes insufficient detail at this stage, however access is a reserved matter. The local member, parish council and 17 public injections raise concern regarding countryside location, highway safety, land stability and impact on character. Oh, perfect, thank you. The key for members is the principle of development in this countryside location. The site lies outside of a defined settlement boundary and is therefore contrary to policies CS1, CS5 and MD1, which normally restrict open market housing in the countryside. However, it must be weighed against the fact that the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, currently at 4.61 years. The NPPF requires decision makers, therefore, to apply presumption in favour of sustainable development unless there's clear reasons for refusal. Importantly, the site is closely related to Broseley, with services and facilities within approximately 800 metres walking distance, supporting its sustainable credentials. The officer appraisal of the planning balance is as follows. The benefits include contribution to the council's housing supply, substantial weight, access to the services and sustainable travels options, sustainable weight, economic and rural viability benefits, moderate weight. The harms include conflict with countryside policy, limited weight, habitat loss mitigated through biodiversity net gain, moderate weight, heritage impact neutral with no identified harm. In principle, no unacceptable impacts have been identified in respect of heritage, flood risk, ecology or archaeology, and detailed matters including access, layout, appearance, landscaping and scale will be assessed at the reserved matters stage. Therefore, on balance, officers consider that the benefits outweigh the harms, particularly in light of the housing land supply shortfall and the site's relationship to Broseley. The proposal is therefore, or the officer recommendation is one of approval subject to the conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before I go to speakers, anybody have any questions at this stage? No? Okay, thank you. Then happy to go to speakers. We have 4 on this application. First, Callum. The right hand button, yeah. And then you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Callum. I'm a resident in Floyer Lane, which is adjoining, adjacent to the land in question. I mean, I believe we should object to this outline proposal because mainly, as a resident, I travel these roads every single day, and it's extremely unsafe road even today. I travel at least twice in my car. I walk on these roads, and I walk my family there, and I've been subject to near misses, mirror hits, and pulling my children away several times, including myself. If you look on the map on the screen, you can see that the road from left to right on the screen is a sharp downward decline with a blind summit at the top, and as you can see, a hard left turn onto Bridge Road on the right-hand side. Both of these means travel is extremely dangerous. Now, building the access to this site comes in both directions that is proposed. And I think having experienced the dangers, I think I can vouch firsthand this is wholly unsuitable location for development, especially for access in specifically to this development. Secondly, I would also like to refer to land stability. This whole area of the gorge is been suspect to stability issues in the past. I mean, and there has been cases on Bridge Bank that are well documented. This is a highly unstable area, and there is deep concern for myself and other residents about the impact of any development on this particular piece of land that could trigger further slips, damage, which would damage not only potential property, but access roads, which would harm the environment all around. Thirdly, I'd like to mention the natural habitat. This is a designated nature corridor that separates Benthall in its rural aspect from Broseley, which is a built-up area. And of course, this is what protects the nature and the environment that people want to live and be here for. And I think as we develop more properties on land like this, we take away that nature corridor that we all love and cherish so much. And I think it sets a dangerous precedent when we try to protect these areas and we start to take them away. Linked to that, it is a conservation area. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think when we start to put development in, as you can see, there is a proposal for 3 properties. There are only 3 other properties in this area. So it's a significant impact on the actual land in question. And I think this does contribute negatively to the environment and the aesthetic and the place where we live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well timed. Any questions from the committee? Yes, Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you very much for that. Could I just check, what's the speed limit on the roads?
Speed limit is 30. So if you can see on the left-hand side, there's a road curving up to the top. This is Floyer Lane. That's where I live. So I pull out of there every day, and the main road at the bottom there, the big one, is Benthall Lane. That's a 30-mile-an-hour limit. As you come left to right, that where Floyer Lane joins, that is a blind summit. You cannot see what's down the bottom from there, and you cannot see what's at the top from the bottom. So 30 on a curved section like this with a blind summit, that's what causes the problems. I mean, many times I've stepped out of that junction with my family and had to pull them back, and several times myself, gave myself a scare.
Okay, thank you. So speed limit's 30. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Hi. You mentioned about the land instability.
Yeah.
Some examples. Can you give us?
Yeah, I mean, there's property further down Bridge Road where there's been, can't remember the exact address, but it's documented, where you can see that the building development has resulted in damage to adjoining properties, the instability, and this is triggering the impact. Now, we understand there has a report been created for this area that's not been made public yet, but the residents would like to see that report to understand what is the impact on this area.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Jane Madeley. Thank you, Jane. Yeah, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the clerk to Barrow Parish Council, just to make it clear. Barrow is an area subject to planning policy CS5, i.e. no open market development. The site is on the edge of Penn's Meadow, known to be an area of meadow between Broseley and Benthall, part of Barrow Parish. Penn's Meadow is managed to enhance the area and nature as an essential barrier between Broseley and Benthall. It is noted that the Coal Board have not been consulted despite the area being well known as an area of mining activity dating back to the 1600s. There is a known mine shaft very close to the site and another within 200 metres. Another planning application within 200 metres for a new development subject to single plot affordable home policy has a Coal Board response requesting their comments to be made a material consideration and requesting conditions are added to ensure safe development of the site. This site should be subject to the same scrutiny. The application references 26.01201 FUL. This site is on a steep slope. On a comparison of the topological plan and the proposed block plan seems to show that plots 2 and 3 drop approximately 4 metres over a distance of 10 metres, with a drop of 0.7 metres within 1.5 metres of Bridge Road roadway. To achieve a within limit slope from roadway to dwelling will require removal of large amounts of soil and spoil. The block plan also shows a driveway to plots 2 and 3 limited in length with no apparent turning circle. Plot 1 driveway would need to be constructed across a wide slope from Bentle Lane that also drops in the order of 4 metres down the site. The planning officer claims approving consent for this site would not have an adverse effect because it's close to Broseley. It is on the other side of Penn's Meadow from Broseley and clearly within Barrow Parish, a parish clearly subject to policy CS5. There is mention of planning appeal being expensive to the local authority. However, further down this agenda today, there are several appeal decisions dismissing proposed developments in settlements subject to CS5 policy. The officer report seems to be contradicted by these decisions. The Broseley Conservation Area is contiguous with the Ironbridge Gorge World Heritage Site. Therefore, it is important to maintain an effective World Heritage Site buffer zone and to protect the unspoilt character of the area. Barrow Parish is disappointed a sentence stating that the site is near Broseley could be part of a formal officer's report when it's clearly within Barrow Parish. Barrow Parish Council urges the committee to refuse the planning permission on this steep slope on an area known to include mining and known to subject landslip in recent times, indeed in the 21st century. It's a shame you haven't got the wider map showing you how that fits, where the boundary is between the two parishes. That map is not misleading, but it doesn't show the true picture that you have up there. I know I'm out of time, but I needed to add that bit in. Because I didn't know you weren't going to show the right map this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for
sorry,
lady? Any questions? No, you're okay then. Yeah, thank you. You can go. Thank you. Okay. Next speaker is Dan Thomas. Councillor Dan Thomas is unable to attend the meeting, so his statement will be read out by the solicitor.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today as the local member for this application. I want to begin by saying the applicants here are people who have done a lot for the local community, which is well appreciated by me and many others. However, as a local member, I need to highlight the concerns of Barrow Parish Council and the community. While there are a few fundamental policy objections to building open market housing in this countryside location, I want to pin my deepest concerns on a critical matter of highway access. The officer's report asks us to approve this application in outline, deferring access to the reserved matters stage. However, I feel uncomfortable with that due to the site's highways constraints. I would have been much more comfortable looking at this from a full planning perspective. Whilst the planning officer makes a strong case for approval, our highways team has explicitly stated that the information submitted by the applicant is entirely insufficient to assess the development from a highways perspective. They have not been able to give a positive response to the proposed access points. The indicative layout for plot 1 shows access directly onto Benthall Lane. As many locals know, this particular stretch sits on a blind bend when traffic naturally accelerates as it climbs up from Barrett's Hill. Introducing a new driveway at this point creates a significant visibility issue for both drivers and oncoming traffic. I've been trying with Shropshire Council's traffic engineer to help stop speeding on this road. 120 metres from here, there is another application for an affordable home, and the Coal Authority has been consulted on that item. I believe the mines didn't quite go this far, but it's fairly close, and I think that should be done in reserved matters if approved today. Chair, I do not believe it is fair to the community or indeed to the applicants to grant an outline permission that kicks these fundamental safety and engineering hurdles down the road. If it cannot be demonstrated at this stage that safe, compliant access can be physically engineered without worsening land stability or creating a highway hazard, then the principle of development is premature. I urge the committee to listen to the serious concerns of Barrow Parish Council and the 17 local objectors who know this area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our final speaker is Mr. Stephen Locke. behalf of who's the agent. Thank you. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Stephen Locke. I'm the agent for the applicant in this application. This housing proposal has been thoroughly assessed by your professional planning officers and recommended for approval. That recommendation is actually based on evidence, policy and a full understanding of the site. Yes, the site does sit just outside the Broseley settlement boundary. That's acknowledged and not disputed, but Shropshire Council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, meaning relevant policies are out of date, which tilts the balancing exercise from a neutral balance to one where there must be compelling reasons for permission to be withheld. As a result, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. That's national policy, and obviously that matters. The correct test today is not whether the site sits just beyond a line on a map. It's whether the proposal would cause harm that significantly and clearly outweighs the benefits. Your officers are clear, it does not. It's an outline proposal for 2 to 3 modest dwellings, which via a later reserve matters application will be carefully designed, taking into account the local character, the wider conservation area, and the need to supply housing in sustainable locations. A previous speaker said about the plan that you can see on the screen. What that doesn't actually show is that it is actually very close to Broseley, literally metres away. Planning officer's view, which clearly we support, is that the site's location would be read as part of existing development along Bridge Road and Benthall Lane. The topography of the site matches existing development in the area. There are already a number of houses on sort of steeper sites. And full details of the site layout, design and landscaping will be submitted at the next stage. Broseley High Street is literally 500 metres away from the site, a 5 to 7 minute walk for the average person, with a good range of shops, facilities, plus there's a local bus service that actually passes with a nearby stop only 75 metres away from the site. This is given substantial weight in the planning officer's assessment. Concerns about heritage have been properly tested. A full independent heritage impact assessment has been submitted, which did not identify any harm to designated or non-designated heritage assets. Shropshire Council conservation officers have got no objections to the principle of the development on this site. There are also no objections from Shropshire Archaeology, Regulatory Services or Ecology, and the applicant is happy to accept appropriate conditions to ensure that the scheme can proceed and to enhance the quality of the development on the site. Highway access, which has been mentioned previously, is reserved for later approval, but the description of the development is such that this element can be dealt with at the reserve matter stage. Every technical assessment appropriate to the outline submission supports the scheme. National policy supports the effective use of land and the site complies with these aims. We feel the proposal is balanced, it's sustainable and therefore should be supported. And we ask respectfully for your consideration and support for the officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, please, for the agent? No? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I will open this to the committee for debate, please.
Thank you. I'm just going to start with a question to officers. Stability of land has come up for discussion a few times. Is that something that we should assess? Is it a material concern or is it something for house builders to decide whether it's somewhere that they can safely build a house?
Yeah, in terms of the principle of development, that is, you are quite constrained in what you can consider there. We have consulted the regulatory authority, which have reported back and with an outline or with a full application, there are conditions that are put on those consents, not upfront necessarily. It's common practice to have those conditions on to address either prior to groundworks and before actually building on the site. The stability was raised in this year. We have included that as a recommended condition under Appendix 1. But as you write, you know that there are key elements you can consider as the officer.
Thank you. I'd just say from the chair that it's been emphasised by speakers how important this area is in heritage terms, particularly, and perhaps conservation as well. And yet the heritage impact assessment says it would result in a minor degree of change to the conservation area. So they're obviously reasonably happy with it. Conservation has no objection at all. And I would have expected perhaps to have had some more comments than just no objection. So on the principle to develop on this site, it's a very short walk by the sound of it to local facilities and that sort of thing. I'm just making those comments from the chair, that's all. For anybody else, further debate? Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you. I've just been looking at the area, and I know the area reasonably well. It is very up and down, and lots of properties around there are built on slopes. I've noticed that in terms of sustainability, that this 800 metres that you can walk into Broseley, there's a footpath on one side pretty much the whole way, and then both after a certain point. I appreciate comments about highways, but I did notice on the map that we had up the concern about the individual house, the access onto that road is quite almost like a blind bend, really. Whether or not we're able to make a decision on that matter, as that might come later on. However, I am expressing my concerns now on that first property there coming out onto that road. Yeah, I presume that's where. So no, the proposed building. Where will it be coming out? Yeah, that will be coming out onto that road there. Yeah, that is the concern that I have.
This is an indicative one.
Yeah.
Gives you an idea of how the
okay.
could be set out.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't what we're considering today.
Okay, so
obviously
I appreciate.
We're just considering, but can that parcel of land accommodate 3 dwellings? And I know the comment about, are we pushing the can down the road? That is a matter for the agent to have considered and thought about the risk that they want to take about whether this site will come forward with 2 or 3 properties, depending on what the access comes later on at reserve matters.
So really, it doesn't matter where those houses are on that picture, because that's not what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of sustainability, I'm comfortable with the walk into Broseley. That does satisfy that for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors to make a comment? Right. Yes.
Sorry, I'm not re-quoting a lot of policy now to everybody. No, I'm just concerned, obviously, about the access. Now, I know you said that it's just, I just can't see where else we can move them around to have a different access point on that road, as it were, that would be any safer. If you sort of get my meaning, I can't see. Yeah, obviously, really, the 2 places they've put it are it, unless they do go all the way up and round and some, 100-yard, 500-yard drive or something.
Fundamentally,
right.
Yes, the indicative drawing shows you are 2 roadways and 2 potential points of how you get it.
Right.
But again, I urge a caution that, this is the matter to be dealt with at reserve matters stage.
Right. And just to understand the process, so if it goes through, and then they come back to us and we still don't think it's safe,
then they won't get their reserve matters approved.
Yeah, right, I'm saying, so we still have a say in it once it gets there.
Yes, that still remains within our control as a planning authority.
Yeah, so in principle, the question is whether that would accommodate 3 dwellings. Maybe they could have 1 access road down to the other road. I don't know. Instead of just for 2 dwellings, maybe that could supply 3. But I don't know the area well enough to know. I suppose in some ways a site visit today to that site with hindsight would have enabled us to have a look more. But then, as has been stated, we're not looking at access. We're just looking whether that site could accommodate 3 dwellings. Somebody over there, Councillor Lumby.
It was interesting in the officer's report that you've got the full spread of what it's contrary to, CS1, CS5, MD1 and MD7A. But I'm conscious of the housing supply that we've got, the lack of it. And so under the MPPF, it goes to sustainability. And as the other councillor says, that sustainable wise, it fits that criteria. I'm just absolutely gobsmacked because my first thought was it's conservation area, it's a no. And then we get to this, oh, well, you're just going to nibble at the edge, so that's all right then. So because of that, I'm minded that I don't want to, but I would be supportive of it.
Yes, Councillor Jeffcott.
Yeah, so mindful of what I've heard from the parish council clerk, looking at the site. I'm relatively familiar with the area. I used to live in Bridge North. While I recognise what I've heard about the conservation area designation in terms of a barrier between the two settlements, if this site was to the east of the lane there, then I would agree that it interrupts the barrier in a very significant way. But it isn't. It's to the west, and there's a property to the south, and there's another property to the west, and a little bit further away there's another property to the north. So I'm not sure it counts as a landscape barrier in the way that perhaps some people think. I think that'd be difficult to defend. I think it comes down to arguments about access, but I agree that perhaps needs to be addressed at reserve matters stage. And I would be reluctant to oppose it at this stage on access grounds. I think that would stretch it too far. I think it comes down to being very, very robust in terms of the design and the materials, so that it does match the centre of gravity, if you like, within the conservation area when it comes back. But at this point, I think I'm minded to support.
Okay, thank you. Just a question for the planning officer. I'm really surprised that the coal board weren't consulted. I thought they were a statutory consultee, or is it not necessary? I thought they commented on all applications.
It could be that we need to do that for when we know the location of the properties that are going to go on there, so that you will be making sure that positioning is in accordance with any stability in the ground underneath. Right. So we can deal with that at the reserve matter stage.
Okay. Thank you. I understand better now, because site stability, as with many other things, landscaping, layout, scale, access, is all at reserve matters. So this is just the principle of could 3 buildings go up on that site. Anybody else? Anybody like to make a proposal? Okay. Yes, Councillor Walmsley.
Yes, I'm happy to propose that we follow the officer's recommendation on this application.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Connolly.
Yes, we have a proposal to accept the plan officer's recommendation. Please can you confirm whether you're for, against, or wish to abstain? Thomas Clayton?
For.
Rachel Connolly?
For.
George Hollyhead?
For.
Ben Jeffcott?
For.
Nigel Lumbey?
For.
Mark Owen?
For.
Colin Taylor?
For.
Beverly Waite?
For.
Sam Walmsley?
For.
Nick Higbett?
For.
That's everyone.
Thank you all.
I'm too sorry, I have to make my excuses. I have to leave, and obviously it's ran over a little bit, but I do have to leave before the next item.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 8.
Chair, can we just have a quick water top break? That's right. Because, you know, the extreme temperatures we're dealing with.
Understood. Yes. So extreme temperatures. 5 minutes water break. Thank you. Okay, move on to item 8 on the agenda. Proposed residential development land east of Shore Lane, Albrighton. Over to our planning officer for the report. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. So this application is reserved matter submission for land to the east of Shore Lane in Albrighton, pursuant to outline planning permission granted in 2023. Slide please. Here's a Google Earth image of the site in its context, and I've done the same where I haven't actually highlighted it, but it's there. Oh, gone too far. Yeah, there we go. Members will be aware from the report the principle of residential development on this site has already been established through the outline consent and the site's allocation within the SAM Dev plan, or existing plan. This application therefore relates solely to the approval of the detailed matters of layout, scale, appearance and landscaping. Next slide, please. Proposal seeks consent for the delivery of 88 dwellings forming the final phase of the wider allocated development at this location. The scheme provides a mix of 1 to 4 bedroom homes, including 17 affordable units, equating to a 20% provision in accordance with the Section 106 agreement. Next slide. Got some parking arrangements for you there. So, but in terms of access, you can see and layout that the vehicle access will be taken from Millfield Road as previously approved, with emergency and pedestrian access provided onto Shore Lane. The development incorporates a clear street hierarchy and includes a 3 metre wide shared pedestrian and cycle route running east to west through the site, linking into the wider development area and improving connectivity to the village, railway station and local services. Next slide, please. The scheme also proposes approximately 0.85 hectares of public open space, which exceeds the requirement set out at the outline stage. This includes a central green space incorporating the existing pond, areas of informal recreation, sustainable drainage features and landscape boundary corridors, with retention of existing trees and hedgerows forming part of the overall green infrastructure network. Slide. The built form is predominantly 2-storey in scale, reflecting the surrounding residential character, and the scheme incorporates a mix of materials and house types to create visual interest while ensuring a consistent and tenure-blind appearance across the site. In terms of consultation responses, no objections have been raised by key technical consultees, including highways, ecology and trees, subject to the conditions and on the basis of the latest revised revisions to the scheme. Some matters have been raised in relation to drainage, construction management and detailed landscape coordination, which are to be addressed through planning conditions and the discharge of conditions process. Concerns have been raised by the local member, parish council and members of the public, primarily relating to public open space provision, parking, drainage and wider infrastructure impacts. However, members are advised that many of these matters, including the principal development, access arrangement and infrastructure provision, were established and accepted at the outlined stage and will be further dealt with through conditions at either the outline consent or through the conditions attached to this consent. Overall, it is considered that the submitted details demonstrate a high quality and policy compliant design, providing an acceptable layout, scale and appearance and landscape framework that integrates well within the surrounding area. Accordingly, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report and delegated authority to officers to make any necessary amendments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the planning officer before we go to speakers? No. Okay, thank you. So 2 speakers on this. First, Councillor Nigel Lumby as the local member.
Thank you, Chair. Members, we've been here before with this one. The old committee approved outline planning consent, but were concerned with matters I raised and stated that they wanted it to return to this committee to decide on those reserved matters. The pre-committee had this down for officer delegation till I reminded the previous chair of the committee's direction and he pushed for it come back before you. I am not seeing much change in this plan in regards to the matters I raised. I tried several times early on to engage with the new developer, being assured I would be involved, but they never did. I did manage to get on a Teams meeting with the school regarding the gate. The issues I raised at the last committee were the parking provision, usable public open space and football provision and connectivity with the East development. which has now been resolved. SAMDEV stated there should be parking provision provided because of the railway station, junior school and doctors all adding to parking issues identified back in 2012 and now substantially worse. Shropshire Council recognise the worsening issue and are about to paint most of Station Road with double yellow lines. And that's good for Station Road, but will merely displacing the problem and exacerbating it in Shore Lane. So I'll go through the 3 points. Parking. I welcome the turning provision after the designated parking spaces provided, far better than the previous developer's plan. In meeting with the planning officer, I found out about the vagaries of outline planning permission, because it only relates to the principle and the access, and isn't about other issues. But if you don't bring them up and get them in, it's hard then for the planners to get the developers to put it in later. So, the planners made it a condition that the developer provide the 11 spaces. So they have. Now, what chance have I got of they getting any more? The original developer was providing 5 spaces for the primary school with a slight realigning of the boundary fence. These could be reinstated when we increase the provision to 16. Nursery staff and some auxiliary staff currently park in Shore Lane, so this would help relieve of the parking issue. Public open space. I welcome various aspects of this application, including the cycleway providing access from the National Cycleway in Beamish Lane through the other development, through this site and into the village. I am concerned that there isn't any natural open area for children to play on. It's all bitty round the sides. In phase 3, the developers tanked in their attenuation pond, creating a small natural glass play area. Albrighton needs a new children's play equipment area. This development is to have one, yet it is not designated as yet. The plan is so tight to fit houses in, it's unclear where it will go, yet the developer doesn't need to disclose it yet. There is one infant play area in phase 2 of Millfields. This needs to cater for the next size up. Football provision. SAMDEV stated that football provision should be provided on or adjoining the site. The previous developer recognised this could be provided by cooperation with St Mary's School to bring back into it the little used football pitch to the south of the development, the big white area on the map. As part of the cooperation provided by the school, they agreed in principle to provide an access way off their road into the top of the playing field, with the ability to park vehicles there. I won't go into the fact the workforce were going to build us a changing room, but there you go. This access route would then open the football field up to controlled community access with the intention all Brighton Junior Football Club could use the facility. This club is in desperate need of pitches, having 23 teams, and would have been a considerable benefit to the community. No such consideration has been provided by this developer. The plan has a private road, and I'm going to point here. The lorry comes there, no private road, so we have got no access to that playing field whatsoever as a result of their plans. It may be too late, but this development, welcomed as part of the local plan and accepted by the village, is nearly there, but in my opinion, is not good enough. Oh.
You've missed out there. I was going to allow you another 15 seconds for running to the board and back. Right, thank you. And our next speaker is Olivia Morris, the agent. And you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Olivia Morris and I'm the planning manager at Persimmon Homes. This Reserve Matters is a well-considered and policy compliant scheme that's been developed collaboratively with officers and key stakeholders to deliver a high quality and sustainable residential development. The 88 homes would provide a mix of 1 to 4 bedroom properties, helping to meet a clear and ongoing need within the district. The 20% affordable housing was increased from 15% during the determination process in recognition of the prevailing policy requirement, demonstrating our willingness to respond positively and proactively to officer feedback. In terms of sustainability, the development incorporates 100% electric vehicle charging and solar panel provision, making a meaningful contribution towards reducing carbon emissions and supporting low carbon living. The scheme also delivers policy compliant public open space, including informal areas, play on the way features, as well as bins and benches to support the usability and provide an attractive and functional environment for both new and existing residents. The application secures 11 community parking spaces designated to support wider community use, alongside a £50,000 financial contribution towards off-site affordable housing. Connectivity has been a key focus of the design. The scheme includes a 3-metre wide cycleway through the site and provides pedestrian, cyclist and vehicular connections to the land to the east. These connections have been carefully aligned with the adjacent development through active collaboration between both developers, ensuring a coordinated and comprehensive approach to placemaking. The proposal also safeguards future opportunities, including a dropped curb arrangement on the southern boundary to facilitate access to the adjacent land should the school playing pitches be reinstated. Persimmon have worked directly with the head teacher and the governor at St Mary's Primary School to agree the provision of a new access gate, sensitively located and designed to match the existing boundary treatment. This is complemented by a 1-metre wide zebra crossing linking the school to the development, improving safety and accessibility for pupils and parents. The development will also deliver wider economic benefits, supporting approximately 300 jobs during construction, generating over £250,000 in SIL contributions and delivering over £2 million in tax revenue, including over £170,000 in council tax. The proposals fully accord with the parameters established at outline stage and represent a scheme that is both technically robust and well designed. This is a policy compliant, sustainable development that will deliver much needed homes, community benefits and long-term value for the area. We respectfully request that members support the officer recommendation and grant planning permission today. Thank you for your time.
Well timed, thank you. You're just rushing because you're off. Yeah. Any questions from members, please, for Olivia? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to commend this application, and I can appreciate the fact that you've modified it somewhat in conjunction with what you heard from stakeholders, as you say. What would you say to the local member who's just commented a couple of minutes ago and made some representations and pointed out his concerns about the access above the field? And some of the other points that he made. How would you respond to what the local member has said?
I think we have had numerous meetings on the various matters. We have taken into account the school access gate, which was mentioned at outline stage. So we have revisited that and we have agreed a location. There will be a planning condition that deals with the specification of the gate, but the layout plan does annotate specifically where that gate is going to be as agreed with the school. The access point to the southern area and the school playing fields is annotated on the layout plan, and again there will be a planning condition that deals with securing a design for that, and then there will be a section 38 technical approval stage to deal with that also. So we will provide the mechanism, and then it's, you know, kind of the access point will be there. It's for then if the school playing field. So I think we've done a good job in being proactive, taking on board comments and working with stakeholders to achieve a development that meets the needs for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Louise wants to come back on some of those points, so over to Louise.
Yeah, not directly to you, but as in just, yeah, to provide that sort of same reassurance. So the scheme has evolved from first submission. There was a situation, you know, particularly looking at the playing fields, whereby there was a adoptable highway that was going there. Then it got changed to a private, and said obviously we're back at the stage at which it's been shown as a case of that it will be adopted, and provision. I can't make it be adopted because that's a separate matter from the planning. But as in, there are conditions that deal with the detail of that. Similarly to obviously with regards to the school, again, there's a condition that deals with that appropriately to ensure. So the play aspect, in the sense that there isn't sufficient to play. So I'll go back in response to the member there. What we had, this is an allocated site, and yes, obviously the member is correct that as part of the guidelines in relation to the whole of the Millfields development, there were certain guidelines that were anticipated to be delivered. The principle of development is set at the outline stage, whereby, you know, yes, it wasn't exactly as was in those guidelines set out within the SAMDEV plan, but we got to a point at which there was a requirement for a 30 square metres per person open space. There was a condition attached for the provision of play equipment to come forward. The plans have been annotated with like indicative locations for those. So it's certainly, you know, the developer is certainly aware that there is a requirement for some play features to come onto this site, but it is it's attached to the conditions on the outline consent and not a matter for reserve matters. So they have appropriately shown that can be delivered within the open space. Yeah, so I don't know what more we can ask for really from the developer than what we have. The conditions deal with that matter appropriately. They accord with the parameters as set out at the outline consent stage. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee members want to ask a specific question? No, thank you very much. So I open this to debate for the committee. I'm happy to start because I've got a few comments here. I note the amendments that they've made concerning the green infrastructure, so I think that's a good point. The amended layout seems to have satisfied the highway officer's safety concerns, so I'm pleased with that. Housing element seems satisfactory, although I would have liked to have seen some bungalows. I do appreciate that every time you look at a scheme like this, the developer obviously wants to fit in maximum number of houses comfortably, but 3 or 4 bungalows even would have been more satisfactory. I think cycleway path through the site is going to provide connectivity, so I'm quite happy with that. There's one thing that I want to mention. It's not particularly with this. It's more of a general thing. It was mentioned about informal areas, play as you go, play as you, whatever it was, for younger children. That nobody ever mentions facilities for teenagers. And with a site like this, there will be a number of teenagers. And I mention this because we're just spending £50,000 as a parish council upgrading our play area for young children, youngish, including a toddler area. And we had one playground advisor come to us and he said, "What are you doing for the teenagers?" We said nothing. And then I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, they all sit in the bus shelter at the top of Hall Bank at night when it's raining or a bit inclement. And he said, you should be providing a 3-sided hut, bit of a roof over the top, bench in there, no lighting or anything like that, don't need any more than that. And he said they can graffiti the wall and everything to whatever and make it their own space. You don't want it next to the children's playground. You want it in one of the informal play areas. And it just reminded me when that was mentioned that I'd really love to see an application coming forward for a development like this number of houses, and somebody say, oh, that area there, we're putting a teenager's hut there for them to hang out, if you like, at night. And we never do. I've never seen on a planning application, never seen anybody saying, oh, we want to cater for the older people and that as well. It's a bit different there because maybe there's a youth club just down the road or something. In my village, there isn't. Only run by the church, and I'm afraid a lot of the teenagers would not go to the church. So I'm just saying that sometime I would like to see a development where they say, that area there, that's for teenagers to hang out. Maybe you wouldn't want it next to your house, I don't know, but just a thought. And if they did put any graffiti that wasn't acceptable, you just spray paint over it and give them a blank canvas to start again. Sorry, I've gone off the agenda a tiny bit, but I just wanted to make that point. Anybody else want to say anything meaningful? Oh yeah, good.
There is nothing that prohibits the the conditions on the outline consent do just allow for the detail of the local area of play, but they're not generally, as you said, things that are necessarily seen within a local area of play. But as I said, there isn't actually anything. It's not for consideration here. I think is the point I'm trying to make. It's a matter for the discharge of that particular condition. But yeah, obviously, you can make the point.
As you can see, there are plenty of areas there where one of them could have been perhaps designated, and on the other application we looked at earlier. All right, committee members, who would like to say something even more meaningful than mine? No. In which case? Yes. Councillor Jeffgood.
Just to say that I'm accepting the point that you've made. I think we do need to be mindful of teenagers. That's why I was asking the question about how we can make sure that the aspirations for an enhanced play facility, maybe for a wider age range, are met. But I'm told by the officer that would be met by the conditions that has been imposed at the outline stage. So I take your assurance that's the case. I would never be keen on deliberately trying to encourage graffiti, because graffiti is not a good thing, and we shouldn't be encouraging teenagers to further graffiti. I accept that it happens, but I'd rather not encourage it. But subject to that, I mean, I recognise the affordability being 20% rather than 10%. I mean, in my own ward, I've been told 10% is the most I can hope for, but here it's 20%. That's great. Reserved cycleway rather than being sort of attached to the side of the road. That's really good as well. Landscaping, I can see some trees there, but that's very good. There's lots of positives on here. And I hope the local member can say to his community, because I'm sure he has been working on this for a long time, that he's managed to deliver quite a number of positives in this scheme as it now is. And subject to the assurance I have from the officer that the power still exists to deliver the kind of play facility that we need, I'm minded to support.
Thank you. In the absence of any other hands, I'm happy to propose from the chair that we go with the officer's recommendation to support this with conditions as attached. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Taylor. Okay, we'll go to the vote.
Okay, so the proposal is to accept subject to the conditions set out in the report. Please confirm if you're for, against, or wish to abstain. So Thomas Clayton.
For.
George Hollyhead.
For.
Ben Jeffcott.
For.
Mark Owen.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Beverly Waite. For. Sal Walmsley.
For.
Nick Hignett.
For.
Thank
you, members. And Councillor Lumley's come back to the table. And we go to agenda item 9, last one, Marches Biogas Limited Biodigester Station, Ludlow. Over to the planning officer.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a variation of condition to a previously approved planning permission back in 2025. I will keep this very brief. I don't think it warrants much of a presentation. It's a very simple and minor amendment to the approved plans to resite a building 2 metres further east and amend some of the hard standing for the access. Thank you.
Thank you. No speakers on this. I go straight to the debate by committee. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chair. As I campaigned against this in the beginning when I was Ludlow Town Council and I abstained on the vote in 2025, I will have to abstain from this.
Okay, thank you. Any other points? Anybody anything wants to make? No? Yes.
Chairman, it's, as the officer said, it's minor alterations, nothing that's going to affect anybody at all, surrounding or anything. I move that we make the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Lovely, second. Thank you very much. To the vote.
Okay, so the proposal is to accept the officer's recommendation. Please confirm if you're for, against, or wish to abstain. Thomas Clayton.
For.
George Hollyhead.
For.
Chip Ben Jeffcott.
For.
Nigel Lumbey.
For.
Mark Gwyn.
For.
Colin Taylor.
For.
Beverly Way abstain.
Abstain.
Sam Walmsley.
For.
Nick Hicknett.
For.
8-4-1 abstain.
Okay, thank you. Nearly finished. Schedule of appeals. Emma, was there a particular one that you would like to highlight on the schedule of appeals?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one where we've won against an enforcement notice. This is down in Clun, where we had an unauthorised dwelling erected. And obviously, as we're all aware in this committee about how precious Clun is. So it was quite a good win to have that we have had the scheme dismissed at the appeal, and we're now working on removal of the unauthorised dwelling.
Yes, Councillor Wandley.
So just a quick question. Are there any further routes to appeal on this one if we reach the end of the road?
There is the potential for a appeal through the courts that is ongoing at the moment, but we don't think that that's going to actually overturn the decision. But just for full awareness.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all for your contribution to the meeting and what has been the longest planning meeting that I've ever chaired. Not that I've chaired that many, so I wouldn't want you to think that it was long on purpose. But anyway, thank you very much for your contribution. Have a safe journey home and see you again. Bye.